Hi, guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Home to Hear. This is a milestone episode. We are the fifth episode. I'm so excited and I cannot believe it. So, today we have a really exciting guest. His name is Atal, and I'll let him tell us a little bit more about himself. But before we begin, I have a bit of a cold. So, if you hear me sniffling, do not be alarmed. I am fine, and I'm really going to do my best to mute the sniffles. But with all that put aside, I'm very, very excited to welcome Atal to the show. Hi, Atal. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Tiani, for having me here. And I feel like you are not the only one having a little bit of cold. I feel like the whole world is going through a COVID come cold disaster right now, and I have been a part of it too. I think we both will try to share the best of our time here during these tough times, and
Yes,
hope listeners are also going through it too. So this is providing a lot of hope that even when you can have the health is weak, you can still continue with your life and journey and continue doing the things that you're passionate about.
exactly. I think that is a great outlook, and I really appreciate that. Tell us about yourself. Where are you calling us from today?
I live in San Francisco. I'm originally from India. I moved to US around 6 years ago. I have lived in Santa Barbara and I have lived in San Francisco. So, in order to just give you some background about my journey from the start, I started in a small village in India called as Rampur, Uttar Pradesh. It's like in the north part of India. Like a shy kid, mostly an introvert up to high school. Then my dad said that, hey, if you want to succeed in life, go prepare for this exam called as IIT. It's very hard to get into IIT. And my dad was like, hey, this is my dream. And if you make it through, then you don't have to struggle in your life. And I just believed him. And then I prepared and I got into IIT. So I studied at IIT Kharagpur. Once I reached there, I realized that suffering doesn't end right like that. When people say that everything's going to end, it doesn't work this way. You just keep going on your journey. After going to IIT, I started getting more into public service. And in the initial years, I started like contesting elections for different roles on campus. I ended up becoming the college president of IIT in my pre final year with the highest margin of votes. And I had a great time kind of connecting with a lot of students who are very smart. CEO of Google is from my campus, and which
Oh,
tells about
wow.
how successful people can get from our college, and there are a lot of other top people too. Yes, then in my pre-final year, I was like standing outside my hostel dorm room, and one of the most successful alumni from my college came on a visit, and he really liked me and he invited me to US and got me an internship here first. And then down the line, he got me admission at UC Santa Barbara. He paid partially for my education, and yeah, I have been in healthcare and more on product management side over the last 5 years. So that's pretty much about my journey over the last 6 years in America.
Oh, wow. That is literally the type of stuff you hear about in the movies. You're just standing outside your dorm, minding your business, and the next thing you meet someone who changes your life. But let's take a step back in terms of like how you grew up. Can you tell us about what your upbringing was like in India before IIT? And I'm assuming IIT is a college, it's a university.
Correct. So my upbringing before IIT is very much like kind of a backbencher kid who would not be the one who would be the most studious, and no one would accept this person to be studious. So I have a younger brother and older sister, and in our family my older sister is like the smartest of all in terms of education and all. So she was always the one looked up to in education, while I was the one looked down upon because I was just not into studies. Somehow things changed over a period of time that I got interested into just like sheer resilience or whatever it is that I want to learn and I want to grow. And that changed a lot of things about my life and got me admission into IIT. If you will talk to my friends, probably like from high school or like even earlier days, they would say very shy kid, no one knows about him that much, very much introvert. But I feel like over a period of time it has changed so much. Now I very much like interacting with people. I get energy from meeting people. So things have changed. I'm still not like complete extrovert. I'm like extrovert introvert, but I like a different way of lifestyle now.
And I'm curious to learn how you grew into that, but maybe we can unpack that a little bit later. Take us back to your time then, now at IIT. How did you get involved in, activism and student politics? What was that process Like you said, you were a shy kid, and then now here you are becoming the president of your college campus. That's not really like the through line for a lot of shy kids. So how did you get involved in student politics, and what was the draw for you in that space?
I think it started with the reading about Gandhi and also learning about just like looking at my dad who has always lived his life with very high moral character. And I think I remember it started like incepting in me when I was in Delhi and there were protests going on for women rights and against corruption. And the protests that were happening for women right and new laws was mainly about there was some rape incident that happened in Delhi which kind of got all the people together, and I was in high school at that time, and somehow I just felt like something wrong has happened and I have to contribute to bringing change or I can't complain about it. So during my preparation for IIT in Delhi, I would go to parliament and all to protest for rights and better laws, be it about against corruption, be it for women rights. And I feel like it's then when I just knew that I have no right to complain until I become a part of the change. Like it's very important for me to be a part of the change. And I just continued seeing that as my guiding light whenever I was in life. Whenever I felt there is injustice happening, I felt it is my moral responsibility to stand up with the truth and fight what's wrong. Otherwise I have no right to complain about it. So I feel like Gandhi has said it very well, be the change you want to see in the world. And I feel like that got incepted very early in my high school. Then even when I went to college and I was like not happy with the hostel mess system, the food quality and all, I would fight against it. I will become a representative to bring changes. And over a period of time, I feel like people just started liking me because I genuinely cared about these causes, and which led to me becoming the student college president.
That's really great. And it sounds like you spoke about it started when you were quite young, seeing the example of your parents, seeing the example of your father, and also having a notable role model in society, someone like Gandhi, and you taking those lessons. That's quite interesting because when I was at university in South Africa, I was also involved in student politics. And I think that is something that was helpful in helping you get grounded in your community and you figuring out what are some of the things that you know you care about. But it also teaches you about balance, which is what you ultimately need in the real world because you're trying to juggle academics, you're trying to juggle activism, you're trying to juggle taking care of all the people that have put you in that position for you to represent them. And maybe stepping to the other side of your academics. So what was your academic career like in college? What were you studying? And then, ultimately, how did you then continue those studies when you got the opportunity to move to the US?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like just going to the point that you mentioned about how to balance academics with activism and all. I feel like a lot of people, what I feel, they choose one side or the other, where they are like, hey, I want to be a scientist and that's my journey and I do not want to do anything else. And some people want to be more into public service and they do it completely. Here's the thing, our society is a responsibility of all of us, which means even though there are specific roles that people should take, it is very important for people to participate and everyone to participate in these systems. So I'm glad that you did that and found a balance. And I think it's very important for everyone to be deeply involved because, in the end, these are the things that truly matter, like how well you stood up for your people, how well you took your community forward, and how well you contributed in making the world a better place. For my journey at IIT, once I entered there in college, I joined the course called as Mining and Safety Engineering. It's a dual degree course. And I was very passionate about software at that time. From the first year itself, I started getting more into robotics and just learning about coding and all. And that is something I started enjoying a lot more over the years. So I started giving a lot more time to that outside of my studies. And then also the other side was academics and then politics. So that's how I feel like I did in my college. It was hard to find balance, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I always went with the direction of what I enjoyed the most.
That's pretty interesting. Again, I find another like point of commonality, which is something I like to do with my guests. So when I started out my career, I was actually a mining lawyer. So when I hear you talking about mining, health and safety concerns and so forth, that is pretty interesting. So when you then moved to the US, what was your academic focus then when you came to your master's degree?
Yeah, definitely. After becoming the president and all, I realized I enjoy things which are at the intersection of technology and management both. So my course here was at UC Santa Barbara called as Masters in Technology Management, which is like a 1 year degree focused on product management, project management, and more of like how to be a technology leader. So that course was like a 1 year course. I really enjoyed that course. It helped me gave a lot of experience in entrepreneurship as well.
Okay, all right. We'll come back to, some of your experiences now as an entrepreneur and so forth. But maybe a step back. So take us back to the time you're standing outside your dorm room, you meet this prestigious alum. What is that conversation like in case someone wants to try and recreate that? When they meet you one day, when you go back to IIT, what are some of the things that, that you think stood out to this person to get them to the point of sponsoring you and getting you to helping you make a move to the US. What was that conversation? What was the content of that?
I feel like I would love to know what was that too, because I don't know what actually clicked there. When I reflect back, I feel very privileged, grateful, and lucky to actually got that opportunity so early in my life, because that literally showed me a world which I cannot even imagine a lot of human beings are able to see. Being able to be born poor and not rich and able to see how richness feels so early in life provides you with an experience which is where you start thinking like what is beyond money. And that's why that experience shaped me a lot, because even when I traveled with him in his private jets or I lived with him in his house at like Hawaii, I realized there are different things that different people enjoy. And money, even though that is important for our living and for thriving, there are things that are more important than that money also. So I feel very privileged to have that experience. Going back to what actually clicked, I feel like I just never had any expectation from him about him doing anything for me. I feel like a lot of times when we go with an agenda, we end up not getting the thing that we want. While when you look at just building out a relationship with someone, then you can actually see the value in a long run. So when I met him, I just had a 1 to 2 minute conversation actually. I just said, "Hello, sir. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for everything you do for IIT Kharagpur." That's it. And then I said, "I would love to show you our hostel, join you." And I walked with him. I showed him his room, old room, and I went on a drive with him to the campus. And that's it. 2 days later, he's the one who actually sent me a first email that, "Hey, great meeting you. What are you doing this summer?" Sometimes in life, we just have to go with the right intentions, and how these connections and the universe are set, no one knows. We just have to go with the right intentions.
I like that. I really like that. That you made such a good impression that prompted him to reach out as well. So there clearly must have been something there that you had done right. If you hadn't met him, was coming to the US something that you were working on your own with your family, or what could your trajectory in life have been if you hadn't met this person? If you can even fathom that, what were you thinking at that point before you met him in terms of your next steps?
Definitely. I feel like what I was thinking at that point was definitely to start my own venture in India. And I was very passionate about it. And I was very clear that I do not want to do a job while I want to create jobs. And that was in my pre-final year and final year. Both the years I was like, I really want to create more meaning out of my life and help other people get jobs and serve them. So if US would not have happened, I probably would have been in Bangalore or Gurgaon or some city. It's very hard to say where I would be, but probably I would have found a lot of joy in my life in India, or maybe after a few years I would have felt like maybe let's try America, so maybe I would have come a few years later. But I feel like at that point I was very clear I want to stay in back in India. But this opportunity was just like such a game changer one, where I was like, maybe I should first invest in my own learning, become a better human being, learn about better things, and then come back.
Okay. And what was that conversation like with your family when you got the place and you got the admission and everything was secured? What was that conversation like with your family before you left?
Yeah, it's very interesting you ask that question, because no one has asked me this question ever. Every family wants their kids to be close to them, and everyone has that desire to be close to their kids. My family is the same, and definitely there was that desire. But I feel like my dad is very much about, he ensures that his job is to help me dream more than anything else. And he always is a very selfless person, where he would put my dreams before anything that he wants. He has done this his entire life. So I feel like in that moment, I remember when I said, hey, I want to go, he said, okay, sure, yeah, you should. If you want to go explore and live whatever you want to do, and he's go for it. And then I remember during the last few months before I was leaving, we have this conversation with one of my relative, and it's me, my dad, and the relative who's my dad's kind of uncle. He says to my dad, your son is not coming back ever. And I think that was such a, my dad looks at me eye to eye, and that conversation, I feel like I didn't know what to say. I said that, don't worry, I'm here and I'm gonna come back. But my uncle insisted and said, no, he's not coming back. And I think that's just the reality of life. We do not realize how life is gonna unfold, where it's gonna go, how long we're gonna live. We don't know any of these things. But sometimes in reflections, I remember that moment now, that there was that conversation where he said that I'm not coming back. And I do not know where I'm going with my life. But that memory is still very much ingrained in me.
And just on that, do you think about it with fondness or sometimes with a sense of guilt? I still haven't gone back home, or is it like, how do you hold that memory now? Is it something that's fun, or do you have a bit of guilt when you think about it?
You're asking me really hard questions. I wish from an emotional point of view, it was just one feeling on either side. It makes me realize how fragile life is. It makes me realize that I have to stick to my words too. At the same time, I am seeking new truth. And the definition of even coming back has changed a lot to me. Like,
Yes. Say more about that.
yeah, like now I feel like at that time I was very much an Indian national, serving my country, grew up on Indian taxpayers' money, and got education. And my whole dream was to give back to India. Now I feel like I want to give back to the entire world, and my whole world is my oyster to play and do whatever I want to do. So the whole thinking I had at that point about my home, I feel like the world is my home now. How can someone tell me that this is not my home when I grew up here and became an adult and fought depression and ran Ironman races and learned so much? I did so much on this land. How can someone tell I don't belong here?
I really like that. I really, really like that's a something that we're going to use again and again. But you said I'm asking you hard questions. Let me go to an easier question now.
Okay.
What was it like when you first arrived in the US? What was that moment?
I was very euphoric and excited. And it's very interesting. I arrived for the first time in US to Omaha, Nebraska. I, I came to do my summer internship. That was the first time. And people are like, oh, Omaha, Nebraska. No one knows about it. People know about it. People are like, oh, Omaha, Nebraska. As an immigrant, people would be like, oh, interesting. So I remember it was a night and I had $10 $20 in my pocket as cash, and I had to go to the hotel at like around 11:30 by myself, and I didn't even know how to get a taxi or anything, and my phone was not working. But yeah, the first day, I end up going to the hotel and I'm like, wow, this is flat land. Wow, how clean is this? There are houses with one buildings and there are fewer people. Such a small space, such easy going big land. I entered the hotel. 3 days I stayed in the hotel. Then I moved to the university dorms because I was doing my internship while in partnership with the university. I stayed there. And then while staying there in the university, I had a housemate. His name is Joe. And Joe and I just became great friends. And I enjoyed our company together. So my 2 to 3 months passed by so quickly. We would go out for dinners, we would go to church on Sundays, and I will dance my heart out. I will do whatever things I want to do, and they will take me to road shows, the car shows happening in Omaha. They will tell me about American history and this and that. I had a blast. And that's why I was like, wow, this Omaha, Nebraska is a great place from where I was. And then I was like, okay, as a first experience, I was like, wow, there is so much for me to learn from this part of the world about how we can improve India and make a better place there.
Okay. And so, did you find anything from Omaha, Nebraska that you took back home when you went back, like in that immediate time? Because I know then you obviously came back again to come to your master's now.
So I think that was the year when I was the president of the student body. And staying in University of Nebraska taught me a lot about how US universities work. And as the president back at IIT, I had a lot of influence and power to be able to bring that change. So I took a lot of the knowledge that I got from there, especially about how they ensure quality in education, how they ensure rights for students, how they ensured branding of the institute, which was not that prominent. So I started a few things at IIT. One is like international relations cell, where international students can actually come to IIT and IIT students can go to internationally.
Oh, that's
And the other
great.
was yeah, and another one was the branding cell, which is about improving the branding of the institute at IIT Kharagpur. So I feel like those were very much things that I got from my time at University of Nebraska, which helped me a lot.
That's great. And then when you moved to Santa Barbara, now coming, your initial interaction with the US, your first experience was in Nebraska, and then now you moved to LA, to California. What was that like?
When I came to Santa Barbara, I was very much into the phase that I wanna be close to water so that I can enjoy my life if the course is not good.
Okay. That was very
And
smart, smart thinking.
I was very clear about it. I'm like, I got enough education and I learned that education is something that you decide what you want to take in. It's less about what they are teaching you, it's about what you want to learn. So I became more of a seeker of knowledge at that time. And I was like, what I need to make sure is my ambience for knowledge is good or not. And that's why I chose Santa Barbara, more of the reason that I would be close to the water. And I did that. I would go to beach every other day before my class and I would watch the dolphins there and had a great time. Dolphins would show up every other day in Santa Barbara when I was studying.
Oh, wow. Maybe I should do go for a PhD.
Yes, it's a place to do PhD, 100%. I tell this to people. I'm like, if you are thinking of doing a PhD, go to San Diego or Santa Barbara because 5 years is a lot of time. If it's 5 years, you want to go to a place where you have a relaxing time and you are studying too and learning and everything.
That's true. And now, just for me growing up in South Africa, you saw a lot about the US in the media, on TV. And then when you arrive here, sometimes the expectations don't quite match the reality. What was your experience? What had you seen in just a lot of American media before you arrived here? And what was your experience of what you saw and heard or watched versus now when you are living here? Not
Mhm.
your internship time only, but when you actually start living here and interacting and getting into the system. What was that experience of expectations versus reality?
So I think the biggest one that comes to my mind is understanding of just the politics of America.
Mm.
And I was always, in a way, had a perspective of Democrats want immigrants and Republicans do not want immigrants. And I think that has changed over all these 5 years, especially for me as a high skilled immigrant. I don't have very strong opinions with either of the philosophies. Both are very interesting philosophies. But just that I had a thinking that I would not be accepted in Omaha in a white Republican family. As soon as I landed and I met Joe's family and I spent time with him and I learned from his political opinions, and then I was hesitant to ask him whether he likes me or not. And he says, and his family is like, "We love you. We love having you here. We love that you are here." And I'm always thinking that, but these are Republicans. They don't like immigrants. I think that was such a contrast on what I actually thought about political affiliation of different people in America, which has now changed. So that is one thing I feel like I definitely never understood. The other thing is I myself didn't understood what community actually means
Okay.
until I came to America. And
Okay.
because
Interesting.
community to me, because India has so many people and I had so many friends, that I always was surrounded with people. I was always having great friends who always believed in me. So I never felt like I would have to seek people out to become friends, or this whole system of individualism might actually not lead to that feeling of finding community. And that is maybe not the first time, but as I came more and more to California, I started realizing that there is my Indian community, which is back in India. Some of people are moving here for sure. But then when I'm trying to make friends with American people, since I came after undergrad, it's harder to make friends too. But then just realizing this culture is very much like community thing that was there in India, I started lacking. And I was like, okay, this can actually also have to do with just how the culture is. That's just how the civilization is structured. So I feel like that
Hmm.
was also a very interesting revelation for me.
That's quite a very interesting point of view. So, one of the guests that we had also spoke about basically everyone who's been on the podcast has spoken about how difficult it is to make and build community when you move as an adult immigrant. It is something that is quite unique to coming at this life stage. And then there's also the piece of the way that we in our various countries view community, especially communities that are still very patrilineal
Mhm.
and where there's still a lot of respect given to elders and so on and so forth. So where it feels more familial, where we're talking about like community views versus like individualism. And so in the US, it does feel like a very individualistic society. So I think sometimes the challenges of trying to build community in an individualistic society, but at the same time, it gives you a sense of freedom to explore new things about yourself outside the realm of your normal community that you have back home. Does that resonate? So for example,
100%.
like now you maybe we'll move into the question around like values. Have any of your values changed in the time that the person that you were in India and the person that you are today? Have you changed any of your values as you are acclimatizing to this new environment?
In terms of values, I feel like values do not change.
Mm.
Values have remained the same. Things that I cared about, the compassion, the empathy, or the idea of equality that I believed in, or the ambition that I had, I think those things haven't changed that much for me. But what has really changed is America, as I was saying about difference between community and individualism. Individualism has allowed me to explore myself a lot more than I would have ever done in a culture which was just about community.
Mm-hmm.
This whole time that I have for myself here to do things that I want to do, and this kind of freedom that I have, this has provided me with able to go out by myself and do things and break and learn and grow. I think that kind of progress I would
Examples of
do.
some stuff that you've now been able to do that you wouldn't have been able to
Yes.
do if you lived in India. Do you think you'd have done the Ironman if you lived in India?
No, that was not on my list.
And what
Like
else?
Iron Man was anyways by itself an adventure which was not planned in my life. It was just a phase of life. But I feel like there are so many things that I just got into a lot more, especially from a physical fitness point of view, biking like centuries and just going out, being in nature, hiking, doing things that I enjoy, swimming, learning how to swim. I feel like a lot of these things I was able to do because I was by myself. I had time and I was like, I want to learn and I want to grow. And I think this country provided all that value to me.
I mean, I think it's such a casual flex to say, "Oh, I didn't want to do an Ironman; it just happened." I feel like doing an Ironman does not happen. I think it needs a lot of planning, time, effort, and strategy. So, congratulations to you for completing that.
Thank you. But I mean, I think it might look like a flex, but I live my life very much like that. You will see, I'm just getting started as of now. But I feel like when I always believe that we should always be learning and growing and being training towards the things that we cared about. And health was something that became more and more important to me as I learned two things. One is the healthcare system of this country is actually really bad. And the second thing I learned is health is the most precious thing that I have. And if, irrespective of whether I have access to doctors or not, if I am not healthy, then there is no way out of it because then it's just death. So once I learned two truths about the health thing, I started getting more into the healthcare of my own health. It actually started more with my drowning incident in Lake Tahoe, where I didn't know how to swim at that time. And I was on a trip with my friends and I was kayaking in Lake Tahoe by myself without the life jacket because my friend was nearby. And somehow my kayak flipped and I didn't know how to swim. And my friend was around and he said, "Bro, you can swim back." And I was like, "No, dude, it's a hypothermic water. I can't even move my legs here." And he's, "No, bro, you can do it. But because there is just no way out, you can't jump back in the kayak. It has water now." And that is where I call like a near death experience, which
Yeah.
just said to me that as I was swimming back, I was like, I'm going back, I'm sinking in this water. And as soon as I reached the shore, I just lay down there and I was like, universe, why do I have to deal with this? And on that day, I changed my life and I said, I'm going to learn how to swim. And then I am going to be free because there is no way to be free if I don't do this. And that's when I continued going to the swimming pool every day by myself to teach myself how to swim. And once I got it, I swam from Alcatraz Island to San Francisco just to prove to myself and to be free in my own eyes more than anyone else. It's about freedom for myself. And once I did that, I was like, now I can run Ironman races too. So I did because I could bike and I could run, but I couldn't swim. Then I did my first half Ironman race in Santa Cruz in the ocean. And I was like, okay, that's scary, but I should take my shot. And once I did that Ironman, then I was like, I don't want to do any other Ironman races. It was not something that I cared about. It was just a part of the journey. And then I would just regularly bike every other day to Golden Gate Bridge here. And I would just like meditate there and be in nature and relax and all. And I kept doing it for an entire year in 2022. And then, as an H-1B immigrant, I lost my job in November and I got 60 days. That's where I was planning to go back home to India. And then I thought, what do I want to do it before I leave? And then I was like, okay, maybe run a full Ironman race and then just go back home. And I just signed up for a race 10 days before the race day. And I just ran the race, challenging myself and just being resilient and kept pushing myself. Though it looks like I wouldn't say I didn't train, but I because I was biking regularly, but I didn't swim for an entire year before that swim day of the race.
Folks, do
So
not try this at home.
not try this. This is not a good thing. But just like I didn't plan these things out in my life, but some circumstances made it happen, and I happen to be a lucky winner of life that I'm always alive and I'm always fighting. But I feel like it was very much a coincidence of being laid off, planning to go back home, and thinking what else I want to do, and then pushing it through.
Congratulations. That's an amazing story.
Thank
People,
you.
please do not try this at home. Don't listen to this episode and be like, Atal said, no, we did not say that. Okay, so as an immigrant, you do think about your status and your visa very regularly. And I'd like for you to discuss that, especially talking about losing your job and then having the whole 60 days. I know it's pretty complicated for people who aren't in the US to fathom that, but can you explain that even for some of our American listeners who don't always know how visas work? And then when we connected earlier this week, you spoke about being in DC for something quite interesting, and I'd like you to shed a little bit more light on that.
Do you know how cancer works? Where when you know you have cancer and you have only a few days to live. That's how it feels when you live in a country for years and then they tell you you have 60 days. Now figure it out or go back home. And that's how I really felt. I just felt all the work that I have done for this country has gone to zero. And I felt as if system just betrayed me, and this system is not designed for me. And the way it works is if you lose your job in H1B, you only have 60 days. Either find a new job and get your transfer done, or you would be out of status and you would have to leave back to your home country. And now, as finding a job and changing a job, it does take time. The company has to interview you, you have to go through the entire process. Those processes by itself sometimes can take 3 months, 4 months. And when you lose your job, it's not that you just know, especially in a layoff, you are not like aware that it's coming to you right now. So it's like a
Mm,
shocking moment. When this happened to me, I was actually on a run. I was on mile 11 of my run in San Francisco. And when I got a call with my manager, and they told me, hey, the company is going through a layoff and you have been impacted. And I was like, interesting. And then I made a video of that moment just to document my feelings.
mm,
And in that video, I said, I need only few things in life: food, shelter, and clothing. As per Maslow hierarchy of need, these are the basic needs. And my shelter is always at stake in this 60-day period because I always need to keep this in mind that I might be on a 60-day period. And that video, I started publishing blogs about it, saying as day 0 of 60, how did I survive? And day 1 of 60, the sun showed up and so did I. So that was a very eye opening moment for me, which is full of trauma. At the same time, I kept pushing myself and ran that Ironman race and everything. And then I ended up also finding a job because my manager read my blogs, the new company, and she's like, I really love this guy who has documented his experience and I want to help this guy. So I got lucky with all these things at that time, and I'm so grateful to her for all this. But what I realized fundamentally is people should not go through this. High skilled people who are very hardworking, helping the American economy, working hard, supporting American people, should not go through this. This is injustice. Especially as an Indian, I am in a backlog of people from India are in a backlog of 134 years, which means they would never have a green card in this country. They would never have the right to vote. And if a democracy cannot provide the right to vote to these people, and there are a million people in green card backlog right now, then a democracy cannot provide anything else either. We are living in a free capitalist economy where human rights are getting violated. because as a human being, I always have this 60 days to find a job or leave the country throughout my life. And I'm like, this is not right. There are rights getting violated here. And that's how I started getting more into advocacy around this issue. And I ended up going to White House and Congress, met a lot of people in the Congress, talked about this issue. People understand how this actually violates the Constitution. Because if you think about from human rights perspective, allowing someone to stay in this country throughout their life and not giving them a right to vote is unconstitutional. And what I'm realizing more and more is there are two sets of audience here. One is the lobbyists who are more of like tech CEOs and all, who actually get advantage by keeping people in the green card backlog.
Oh, wow. I
Because
didn't know that.
yeah, it's very interesting. So they get advantage because when people stay in the green card backlog, they are less likely would be able to change jobs and they can exploit these people. And on the other side is the Congress, who is supposed to be the leading part of the country, who has to make the laws, is not making the law, is not making the change to allow these people, 1 million people who are stuck in the green card backlog, who came through legal means, followed all the legal rules. Backlog means these people are officially should be having green card. It's just it's backlog, which means Congress and lobbyists are intentionally, in a way, not giving this right to people. And the human rights are getting violated here in America, which is like the paradigm for change. So I feel like that is where I started learning that this is a very sophisticated issue. And I would like to like just summarize to you how I look at it. When US was going through a civil rights movement in 1860s, where the southern states were more saying that hey, our economy runs because of the system that we have created of slavery, while the north was like no, this is not right and we do not want to expand this. This led to a civil rights movement and led to a lot of change, right? Now, here we are. Lobbyists and tech CEOs are getting advantage by keeping people in this green card backlog, and it is continued to increase every year. And the Congress is not changing the law, which means intentionally or unintentionally, they are actually allowing this exploitation to occur in America, which is not right thing to do.
First of all, thank you for sharing that perspective and enlightening people about this situation, because that's the ideal that a lot of immigrants have, that you get here, you come on your student visa for a lot of people that I've spoken to so far, and then maybe get on the H-1B, and then eventually you want to get to your green card. So if it seems like the path is has all of these other forces or like other players involved in it, then it's important for people to know, to have a good idea of what the path to a green card could potentially look like. So thank you for sharing on that. And again, what I really like is that we see your advocacy work that you started off in high school, continued into college, and now you're here in the US advocating, on the largest platforms, going to the US, going to Congress, and just to really see that through line in the work that you've done. For you, this is not just something you talk about, but it's genuinely like at the core of who you are. And like you said, that values have not changed despite the change in circumstances. So thank you for that. And maybe staying on that, what practices, as much as your values haven't changed, what practices or traditional aspects do you still hold on to preserve your culture here in the US?
Definitely. And on that part, I do want to add what I was explaining you. So right now, what is happening around 60 to 70% of the Indians are the ones who get H1B, because when you look at talent, India's talent is getting the H1B, but then only 7% of them end up getting a green card, which means 63% of these people are going to be exploited through the H1B process, which is where I say there's a fundamental problem which is wrong. Also, H1B visa is very much designed in a way from an employer point of view and not an immigrant point of view. If you think about the 60 days and all, this is the challenge. Employer has a lot of power over the immigrant, which can cause this exploitation. So that's the exploitation. That's like the kind of like advocacy and exploitation that I'm advocating for. In order to stay connected to my roots after coming back here, I feel like what I try to do is definitely stay connected to my friends who are coming on visits here, and just stay in touch with the Indian culture. Also ensure I participate in some of those events, college meetups, and everything. I feel like that is just like how I am able to stay in touch. I also do a lot of meetups, which are more of like open to all meetups, where I invite everyone who is in San Francisco and bring the whole community together. So I feel like by organizing community meetups, by sharing my culture, and by also participating in my culture and then learning about other cultures, I feel like I keep myself grounded.
I think those are all great initiatives, and I can see your cold is sneaking up on you. And I also just want to point out that it's so important for people to tell their story and to see the value in their story, because that's how you got your opportunity with your current manager, by you not letting shame or fear like hold you back and leaning into the discomfort, which I think is something that you've learned here in the US. Because back home, like for me in my weeks, what are people going to think? You lost your job? Did you have any of those like concerns and thoughts as you were going through that process?
That's such a good point. Just the way you said about your culture is the same about India. Losing a job is considered that this person is not capable, and vulnerability is looked as very much of diminished value in a lot of cultures. People do not understand here we are fighting against a broken system. Like on one side I am fighting for just to stay in the job, I have to keep working throughout my life because there is no way to get a green card for me. In a way it is such a broken system where just there is no way out, which means someone is going to get broken one day. They are on a rat race of a capitalist system, and one day they would be out of it and they will lose a job. There is just no way out for anyone to escape this round the way it is
Hmm.
created right now in its way. Now, yes, I felt that my community is definitely gonna look down on me, and there are people who did that too. But at the same time, you also need to know you are living a story, you are living a journey. You are not a product of your one
Hmm.
circumstance.
Hmm.
You are a product of your journey. You are not a product
Yes.
of that one moment that you lost your job. And that's probably why within 5 minutes of my layoff, I created that video. Not because I felt that I need something from anyone, but I felt it was the right thing to do, to share what I'm feeling and document my journey. Let's take different scenarios what could have happened. As I started writing it out, I got a lot of traction. My subscribers for my Substack started going crazy up. So I got so much attention. Then I decided to run an Ironman race. Maybe I wouldn't do that. I would have done something else. Maybe I would not have found a job too, or I would have moved back to India. If I would have moved back to India, I would have been creating a lot of value for India right now, which means the part of this layoff was a very short moment of time in my life where all my now accomplishments would have taken over all of that. Over a period of time, all those small things could have gone down. That's why leading with vulnerability always wins, because through vulnerability you connect with people and then you take them forward in a journey. If you think about what I did via sharing my experiences, I got myself vulnerable when I had nothing in my hand, and I just trusted myself and the universe. And I took all these people who joined me in that journey, who were going through similar stuff, but they would never share their experience and they were like feeling ashamed of themselves. But what I did is I provided them with a little bit of courage there, that it is okay to be laid off. It's okay to lose your job. And I took them together with me. And then I kept going forward with my journey. And then they saw this ray of hope in their lives, that there is something that can happen as it happened with Atal. It can happen with other people too. And it can happen with me too. So now it's been around a year. My blogs are still famous and people still reach out to me on LinkedIn. that they read my blog and they loved the story and they want to talk to me. It's just crazy how the world works in mysterious way, but leading with vulnerability and trusting the process always works out.
I really love that. And lots of people are going to reach out to you after this podcast as well to learn more about this journey. And
Thank
for
you.
you to close us out, continuing with vulnerability, we're going to go into the rapid fire section. And just so, as I'm speaking, so some people, because it is a podcast, so people listen and then some people watch. So those that can't see you, to everyone who can't see him, he's wearing this super cool t-shirt that says unique human. And honestly, I think that is the perfect way to describe you. And where can we get this cool t-shirt?
I own the domain uniquehuman.ai. I just bought it. This t-shirt I got it for free from one of the event. They actually are doing something and they designed the t-shirt for their stuff. But then I just loved this name and I was like, I'm gonna buy the domain. So I bought the domain Unique Human AI. Maybe I should do this. Great idea. I should start getting t-shirts from that, selling t-shirts from that Unique Human domain.
Exactly. And when you make your first batch, send one this way.
Definitely.
Um, so now Atal, rapid fire section. First question, home or here?
Life is always in transition.
You have to pick one.
I feel like there is no better answer. Life is always in transition. Earth is my home.
I'm not gonna let it go. Home or here?
Here as long as it's here, and home as long as it's not here. Being in the present. So if you can think about it that way, you can also say here means being in the present. So I'm in the present.
Okay. Yes, I'll accept that. I do agree with
Okay,
that.
okay.
Here being in the
Thank you.
present. What is your favorite food from back home?
Favorite food? I feel like I miss okra that my mom makes. Yeah, okra is definitely something I would like to eat more, and I love it.
That's great. What's your favorite snack here?
Favorite snack here? I eat I eat a lot of more of almonds and cashews, and I feel like that's what very much Californian thing to say. But yeah, that's what is my main snack.
You're the second person who's come on the podcast talking about cashews. I'm like, maybe
Oh,
that's what we should do. Is get like
wow. See
cashews.
how good the world is doing. We are all becoming more and more conscious about our health and getting towards more healthy snacks.
Yeah, so that's great. Maybe that'll be the outcome of this podcast is as a bunch of
Yes.
healthy snacks. Who knows? So I asked you to give us a song for someone who has never heard music from India, and you provided us a song. Can you please talk about why you chose that song? I can't pronounce the name properly, but we do have a playlist, and it has been added to the playlist for the podcast. But why does that song say? What does that song say about India to you that you would want it as the first introduction to Indian music for someone who has never been to India?
So I think I shared the song with you from Kailash Kher, and I'm trying to think which song I said, but I can talk about just like
Sayan.
about
Sayan.
Sayon.
Is that how you say?
Yeah, it's a great song. It's a beautiful song, Sayan, from Kailash Kher. And I feel like I like Kailash Kher's personality. One reason I like him is because a lot of people say that I look like him. So I always
Okay.
take that as a compliment. But I used to listen to his song before people started calling me like him. But I feel like his voice is very genuine, very authentic, and he just goes in this flow and has so much euphoria in his voice which brings so much energy to me. So I feel like all his songs are very precious to me.
And that's how you want people to experience India through music.
India
Great.
has beautiful music. India has beautiful music.
I mean,
A
we
lot of
know we love Bollywood. Hello, where we
Bollywood.
are. But I know
Do
there's
you
a
watch?
lot more other than Bollywood. So it's glad to get that, to be exposed to different types of music as well.
Yes.
What is your favorite memory from home? I know you shared one earlier, but is there anything else that stands out to you as a really special memory that just comes to you?
Moment to moment, I think it comes from one of my trip back home few years ago when I went back home and I just saw my mom and I just fell in her arms and I was like, I felt wow. It's great to be back. It felt wow, just being with my mother, being able to be in her presence in that moment. was very powerful.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And what's a very American thing that you've experienced? Something that you have only experienced or seen that only exists in America? What is a very American thing that you've experienced?
Going on a dinner and saying, let's split 50-50.
Thank you. You know what? Thank you on behalf of the international community.
Isn't that true?
That is very true. It's so bizarre. It's very American, extremely
Yeah.
American.
I started learning that a little bit. I'm like, no, this is not good.
I'm going to
Yeah.
move on to the next question before the people on the internet come for us. What's something new that you learned about yourself here?
Something that I learned about myself here, I feel like vulnerability we were talking about
Mm,
as a power. I feel like that's something I learned after coming to America. What I learned about America or myself in general is that it's a very trust driven society. Trust is respected here, and it's a very high trust society. And it made me actually be more honest and more trustworthy for myself and for other people, which helped me do better in my life. So I feel like that's something I really love about America.
that's great. That's really great. And what's something about yourself from back home that you're still holding on to here?
I'm holding on to the truth. The truth is that I always believe in coexistence. And I feel like when I'm facing all these challenges with the immigration system and all, I feel like it's designed as if there is one winner out of it. And I want it to more be driven thinking about win mindset where it's a
Mm,
mutual win. And I feel like that's a change I want to see in America.
thank you. Thank you. Getting people to hold on. Like you're saying, a multi beneficial outcome for everybody. Um,
Everyone.
yeah, I
Yeah.
really like that. And just three more questions. What form of non financial support do you wish you had when you first arrived here?
Non financial support. I found that when I came for the first time, I found a family who adopted me in some form. I also got my mentor to help me support and all. I feel like having a community from your hometown, which helps you transition with different types of people in that community, like who have maybe, let's say, someone who has lived Indian way in America, while someone who has lived an American way in America, but being from an Indian side, and then
Mm,
maybe some American who has lived American way. So having Indian living in America, Indian living in America, American way, and then American living in America, the American way, or if you have someone who is like American living in America, Indian way, then we should find all these combinations because that will help me understand America in a very deeper way about
yeah,
how the values, the culture, and everything, and that can be of great value add.
yeah. So again, that community piece, that's actually the most common response that
Mhm.
people are when they arrive here, they wish that they had a better community. If someone has was listening to you right now and they're considering they're sitting at IAAT and they want to move to the US or wherever they might be, what is something that you would really want them to consider and think about as they're considering making that move as an adult from home to here?
First of all, I feel like people need to understand that every place you go in the world, there are pros and cons.
Yeah.
And it's very important to know the cost when you look at the result out of it. The cost to life, there is a cost to life. It's not about America or India. It's about there is a cost to life, and we do not like paying the cost, but we like the rewards. And
Yes.
it's very important to have this in your mind throughout your life, throughout on an everyday basis, that as you're moving forward in your life, there is a cost that is going in the form of your time. You are giving
Mm,
away your time on a daily basis because life is short by design. So you need to be very much aware of this loss of time, and then you should choose your results about where you want to go. The more knowledge you can gather from the lives of people who have come before you, in 10 years, 5 years, recently, the better decisions you can make for yourself. In the end, I feel it's always a good idea to explore other parts of world just to understand, but you also need to know when is the right time to leave, because we all like to hold on to things in our lives, and holding on to things which are not helping you grow might not be the right thing for you.
Yeah,
As a human being, you would want to grow and become a better human being, so you always should be open to those changes.
I agree. I like that. That is something for people to consider. Honestly, the cost benefit analysis, what they
Mhm.
call opportunity cost of staying versus leaving, that is definitely something to consider. Last question. Has here become home?
Has hair become home? Home is where the heart is, and the heart is right now in service of earth, whether it's in America, India, South Africa. I can go anywhere right now. I feel like the heart is right with me now, and that is the most important thing. So whether this is home, this is not, this is my home. It is a part of my existence. I would
Yeah,
never be able to deny to someone and say, I didn't live in America. I lived 5 beautiful years of my life in America. It's a part of my existence. This is my home now. And the earth is overall my paradise. And I'm just playing being an explorer of this planet.
that is a perfect way to close this out. Thank you so much, Atal. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible story, your inspirational story. I'm going to have so much fun when I have to listen to this again for editing purposes, just to gain these gems once again. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about all the amazing things that you do?
No, happy to connect. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Tiani. This has been great. Thank you for asking really hard questions. It makes me think about myself more too, which is very important for me. For people who want to connect and reach out, you can connect on LinkedIn. My name is Atal, Atal Agarwal, Agarwal. So happy to connect, and always love helping immigrants, people who want to dream, and people who want to fulfill their dreams and self actualize. I'm always about helping such dreamers live their dreams. Happy to connect and answer anything that comes to your mind. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.